Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Today we are going to go down to the south of Sydney. There's a lot of abandoned railways and tunnels. We're going to try and find an old village that has disappeared into the bush, see if we can find any remnants of it. So we're going to use a bit of technology to see if we can find all this stuff. So I found this old map of the railway between Waterfall, south of Sydney, going down to Helensburgh and then onwards to Stanmore Park. This is the existing railway, and you can see the dotted line here, just there. That's the old railway built in about 1886. And so it goes through, there's a tunnel here, it goes through there, there's some more tunnels, and it comes out at Lilyvale and eventually goes down to Stanmore Park. So what happened in around about the turn of the 20th century, they found that the old railway line, even though it was shorter, the gradient was about 1 in 40, and the trains found it a bit steep. So when they were going up some of these hills, the trains would be going through the tunnels, and the people were getting gassed by the smoke because they were getting stuck in the tunnels. So they thought, well, let's realign the railway line. So that's why they put these 5 loops in here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that basically reduced the gradient to about 1 in 75. Now, if you'll notice here, just in here, it says the site of Cawley. So in about 1884, as they're building the railway from Waterfall down to Stanmore Park, or Bulgo Beach at the time, they built this town of Cawley for the railway workers. And there was about 100 houses there. They had a school, they had a shop, post office, and it was called Cawley because one of the local farmers' name was called Cawley. So they built this place, and when they'd finished the railway, they moved on down to Helensburgh and Lilyvale. They moved the railway workers on, and the town basically disappeared into the bush. So that's what we're going to try and find today. So what I've done, I have overlaid this old map onto an image of Google Maps. So here's the old railway from the map, and it's sort of fairly closely aligned to Google Maps image. And I've drawn a little rectangle in here, and then when we go to Google Earth, you can see Waterfall here, and if we zoom in here, you can see those same railway lines, and if we zoom in a bit further, you can see that there are 4 or 5 GPS points that I've put in here. So this is basically that square that was marked on that map, and these GPS points here, so if I go properties, you can actually see the location here is 34 degrees, 9.832, then 150 degrees, 59.327 east longitude. So I've loaded those into the GPS, so I've called these just northwest corner, northeast corner, southeast corner, southwest corner, and that's the center there. And you can notice here that the actual vegetation is a bit thinner. It's a slightly different colour. This here is the old railway line. It's a bit hard to see because it sort of disappeared into the bush. But if we go here, and one of the nice features of Google Earth is you can go back to previous images. So I'm going to take this back to 2003. That's what it looked like in 2003. So the railway line is a lot more obvious now. And if we go down here a little bit, it looks like there is a cutting there and a tunnel, and that goes through the hill here. It comes out here. So we're going to go down there and see if we can find these things and do a bit of exploring and see if indeed there's anything left of the old village when we get there. So let's go down to Waterfall and start our journey there. I'll see you down there. Okay, so we've come down to Waterfall Station, and this is the end of the line for the Sydney City Trains, the furthest southern end of the rail line. In 1800s, around about the 1870s, this was certainly the end of the line because the trains didn't go any further. In fact, on this station, just down there, you can see a turntable. So they bring the trains in, and they would turn the trains around and send them back to Sydney. And the problem was that they discovered coal down in Wollongong, and they were actually mining coal in the escarpment, and they had these horse-drawn wagons taking the coal from right down from the escarpment right down to the water, and taking them onto boats off these jetties, the private jetties they built, and they would take the coal from down there up to Sydney on these boats. And so the only way to get down to Wollongong was by these boats, or you'd have to go through really dense bush, steep gorges. It was really, really rough terrain. And the problem was the jetties got washed away every so often by big storms. So they thought, well, we've got to build a railway down there. And so they came down here, and the government actually worked with a private company, a public-private partnership even way back then, and they started building this rail line from Waterfall down to Wollongong, and actually right down to Kiama. So, so here we are at Waterfall, and sometimes you might wonder why it's called Waterfall. Because of this. This is National Falls, just off the Kell Avenue, probably about 2 kilometres down from Waterfall, and it's actually on the Waterfall Creek. So the other thing you might wonder is, well, we're sort of atop of a ridge. Where do they get water for the steam trains? So steam trains will stop here, they fill up with water. So where do you get the water from? This is a railway dam, and basically this whole lake fills up with water. It's damming Heathcote Creek, and they would have used this to pump water up to Waterfall for the trains back in the steam train days. So you may ask, how do they get the water up to Waterfall? We're probably about 150 metres below Waterfall. Well, here's the answer. There's an old steam engine here, and there's a little jetty over here where they would have pumped the water. There's the jetty, and there would have been a pipe going out there, I guess. But right now, it makes a really picturesque spot. So I'm here with Jason, who's stupid enough to come along.
It's good to be here.
And I told him, always be worried about people who say, I know a good shortcut. And here we are. This is a very boggy, it's basically a railway cutting. If we turn around this way, we're about to go into, this is the old tunnel. I don't know if you can see it, the other end. I think this one's about 1,200 feet long. And the brickwork here is still in pretty good nick, actually. This was built in 1886, so if you look up at the ceiling there, you can see the soot from the old steam train still. So we're in the tunnel, and they have these cutaways where if the train was going past, you could just go into the hide in the hole. Looks like they whitewashed the wall.
Yes.
You can look up there. It's all sort of whitewashed.
You've got all those books there.
About 10 years ago, you'd come in this tunnel, and there were this bracket up here used to hold the plastic tubing through here, and there was a big air pump at the end, and they'd pump air through the tunnel for the mushrooms.
Oh, okay.
Just to keep the whole place ventilated.
Yep.
So we've donned our gumboots because we're at the entrance of this tunnel, and we're about to go into this orange mud, and it's just filthy. It's probably a lot of iron has been rusting there. It turns this whole thing orange, and it's just muddy and boggy. So let's see how we go. Yuck. Just an orange river. Oh, dear.
You were calling yourself a wuss.
Yes. So that's the tunnel. It's called Cawley Tunnel because we're not far from the village of Cawley, which is what we're going to have a look for. And
the trains would have come from Waterfall. It's only a few kilometres to Waterfall. Come through this tunnel. There's another tunnel at Helensburgh, and then it goes down towards Stemmel Park. So there's a series of these tunnels all the way down. So on the GPS now, it shows that we are about 500 metres from where I've marked the centre of Cawley Centre. And if you have a look here, it's very overgrown. We're going to beat around the bush, Jason. So I brought the machete just in case. And Jason was wondering why I'd bring him out to a remote area with a machete. He's a very trusting guy. So there's sort of a track through here. Sort of. Yeah, left to right. We're 240 metres away, according to the GPS. Yeah, another one up there, another pole up in the bush there. Yep. With an electrical insulator on it. Let's go and have a look. Sure. Yeah, this is definitely the railway line. So we're very close to the site of where Cawley village is, and we found this old, looks like an old fence post or rail or something, been through a few bushfires, and it's still here. So let's see what else we can find. So we're basically right on the edge of where the town was, and you can see the trees aren't quite as thick here. There's a lot of bracken fern, but the trees aren't as thick, and this is where, according to the GPS location, the village was. So we'll see if we can find some other artefacts around here. But I suspect it's going to be buried under a lot of debris and undergrowth after 130 years. So. In this area here, there were about 100 houses. There was a school, a shop, a postmaster, and the actual station. So behind me you can see this is like an embankment, and the actual railway line was above that, and there's a station just down there mainly used for unloading materials and things, and that's all just been taken away as the railway moved south. They basically tore down the old village and moved on, and there was about 1,000 people here. There's a school, and it's just basically, as you can see, disappeared into the bush. But you can sort of see that there was something here. It's quite open and fairly flat, but there's not a lot here, and I doubt if we're going to find too much more because it's just been buried under debris. So we're coming up on a creek. You can hear a creek here. So probably likely the town was built very close to the creek. I think this is Wilson Creek. And thankfully we found a bit of a track through here. Maybe an animal track. But here's the creek. And if we continue up here a bit, we'll see it should go underneath the old railway line. So let's go and have a look. And indeed, what is appearing out of the bush? It's an old viaduct. Look at that. So the railway lines, or the old railway line's above us, and the creek flows through it. And on the floor, you can see this old brick paving. And even the brickwork's still in good condition after all that time. So this is the other side of that viaduct, and it's just a really good bit of workmanship. All the bricks in good condition after 140, 150 years, and this water's been flowing through those, through there over those bricks for many years. And this creek then continues on down to join the Hacking River. And I'm not sure why it's so red. Maybe there's something rusty in there, but it doesn't look very inviting. So we were walking down the creek and we came across these old foundations. Looks like some sandstone blocks, just some remnants of probably an old building here, just overgrown now. And then we turn around and then we came across this, another viaduct. I don't fall in the creek. So this one here is a more modern one. So the rail line is up the top there, and we've heard one or two trains go past just now. So that's actually a working railway line. So I guess this one here was probably built in the early 1900s. And again, you wouldn't do it like this. The brickwork is fantastic, but you wouldn't be able to afford it these days with the cost of labour. Jason here is a draftsman, works on civil engineering projects, and he can talk about what they do now. So Jason, what would they do now for this sort of
these
bridge?
days they'd probably put an abutment in on each side, a concrete abutment with piles into the ground, and then just get planks and drop it across and run it that way. So that's your typical small bridge type structure these days. It's cast off site, a lot of it, and just brought in and placed.
And why do they do that instead of bricking?
Speed, cost. They're quite solid bridges in reality, but it's a cost and an ease of construction.
So what do you think of these ones?
I love them. I think they're fantastic old bridges. Just, yeah, brings a smile to the face every time I see something like this.
There's a man with a smile on his face. You can't see how deep it is here. Oops. It's getting a bit deep here, man. There used to be a sandbar along here. Maybe on the other side of it. Oh yeah, that's better. Still pretty deep though. I'm not sure if we're going to... It's a bit higher, but yeah, it actually slopes up on the edges. So this is the new alignment, and it's basically a big long curve in the railway line. But you can see how dense the bush is, and it's filled with creeks and gullies, and it just would have been almost impassable back then. Imagine trying to get down from Sydney to Wollongong. Probably not many roads, or very bad roads. Horrible trip, and so going by train would have been an excellent option. This alignment here basically made the whole thing a lot flatter and had a gradient of about 1 in 75.
Hope you enjoyed that. We certainly did, and we are planning another one soon that's not so far away. It will be an area that was set up around about the early 1900s, and so we'll be exploring that area as well. So thanks for joining us, and look forward to seeing you next time.